I'm teaching English to ESP students or English for specific purpose students, those students who are studying English for a specific purpose. So most of the time I have been teaching English for specifically the writing subject for the students of business field of study. So I noticed many times that when we were teaching the writing to the students through different ways, but the students were not able to apply those writing techniques in their work environment. So that was considered a big challenge for the lecturers who were teaching writing to the students. So after doing my master's degree in Malaysia, and after designing a syllabus for master's students, after designing a writing syllabus for master's students in Malaysia, I realized that using authentic materials and using genre-based approach for writing is very effective. Therefore, the IACBE conference was a good opportunity for me to share my ideas about teaching the writing subject to the business students. So uh, here is the important elements which are uh, and if you want to teach the writing to the students of business. So here are some important elements that first of all we have to know. The first is that experiential learning is the learning where the field experience of the students are connected to the classroom experience. It means whatever they are experiencing in the field, we are connecting that to the classroom. This way the student learn better and quickly. Another element is the authentic material. We have to know what are the authentic materials to know better the usage of genre-based approach in teaching writing. We have to know what are authentic materials. Authentic materials are not originally designed for academic purpose. It means the materials which are used in real life situation, and the main purpose of these kind of material is to solve a real life problem. But these materials are not designed for academic purposes. These kind of materials are called authentic material. If you see in my slides, this is a screenshot of an email which has been sent to an employee in an organization. This is something which has been used in real life situation to solve a problem. And we are using such a kind of materials to teach students writing. Another important thing is that we said we are using writing genre analysis approach. Before that, we have to know how many type or how many writing genres we have. So we have 6 major genres: descriptive, expository, journals and letters, narrative, persuasive, and poetry. In this, we are working, or for our business classes, we are using journals and letters. This is the main genre that the students of business are using. In this, there are some other subgenres, for example, complaint letters, inquiry letters, that we will discuss later. And for teaching writing to these business students and using authentic materials, we are using a genre analysis approach. This is a 5-step approach to analyze a real life piece of writing, or a real life piece of business writing, and then using that piece of writing as a model, and considering that model, we recreate a new writing piece, which will be used as a model for the students. First of all, experiential learning, as mentioned before, learning from experiences or learning by doing. This is what Lewis and Williams in 1994 said. But experiential learning is aligned with constructivist theory of learning. It means when the students are engaged in a process of learning, they learn better and they construct knowledge for themselves and they understand better. So two types of experiential learning has been identified: field-based experiential learning and classroom-based. Field-based, for example, the students who are working in an organization as an intern, they are in fact working, uh, they're working a field-based experiential learning. But classroom-based experiential learning is the one where the student do a role play in the class, or do simulations, or do case studies, or working on or studying through problem-based learning. Uh, Another is that authentic materials, the materials which are oral or written material taken from real world. As I mentioned before, that I have taken an email which has been sent to an employee. This is something which has been used in real world, and it has been sent to solve a problem. This is a material which is taken from real world and not primarily created for pedagogical purpose. So such materials are used in this approach to teach students writing. The benefit or the advantage of these material is that it links the formal environment of the classroom to real world. It means the student know that there is something, uh, what kind of letters or what kind of piece of writings are used in real world, and what kind of piece of writing are studied in the classroom. Now, when the student make a connection between these two type of, or these two, a formal environment of the classroom and a piece of writing which has been used for real and real world, the student can understand the differences, and student can also understand how to prepare himself to write something which can solve a real world problem. Another thing is that students learn uh, to use particular specialized vocabulary of business. When we are using materials from real world, or when we are using the writing pieces which has been used in the real world for solving real world problems, then another advantage of this is that the student learn the business vocabulary, the structure in which these business letters or business piece of writing are written. The student also learn what grammatical and vocabulary should be used in such a kind of writing, because we are giving the real life materials for the student as a model, and the student is seeing that model. The student prepare themselves and write their own pieces of writing. Such materials are also interesting for the student because it engages the student and motivate the students for writing. Now the approach that I mentioned earlier that we are using for teaching writing to the business student is called genre approach to teaching writing. An advantage of genre approach is that the student do not just write. In other approaches of writing, the student are just writing and the purpose is not clear. But in this approach, the student are not just writing, but they are writing for a purpose. It means before starting to write, their purpose is clear, and they know what exactly they are using, what vocabulary they are using, what grammar they are using, what schematic structure they have to follow, or who are their audience. It means this approach gives the student a full picture of writing. It means he knows every element in his writing. Therefore, it also another important thing in this approach is that the student learn all the three aspects of a writing, because he know the writing style. It means he know uh, how should he write, what vocabulary and grammar should he put in. He know his target community. It means he know that who are who he is writing to, who are his audience, based on the level and based on the level and the knowledge of his audience. He is writing based on the level and knowledge of his audience, because one of the main aspect in this approach is that he should know his target community or his target audience. Another is the goal. When the student is learning writing through this approach, he know the goal. He know what is his goal by writing a piece of text, or he knows that what goal or what objectives is he delivering to the people. Therefore, considering all these three aspects, then he first he make himself understand, and then considering all these three aspects, he start writing. Another thing is that when the student wants to write a piece of writing, for example, he wants to write a complaint letter. Now, if we're going through this approach, and the student wants to write a complaint letter, he understands what words and what grammar are very usual in writing a complaint letter. If he know the words, the linguistic features, the grammar, and the structure, which are very usual in writing a complaint letter, he is better able to write at least a good piece of complaint letter. In genre writing, the needs of the target community is taken into consideration, and the purpose of writing is a high priority for the writer of the genre. As I mentioned before, the needs of the target community is considered. It means the writer wants to know who are their audience, in what level they are, and what they are expecting from the writer, because he is writing for a specific audience. In addition to that, the purpose of the writing is the high priority. It means what does he want to deliver to his audience. In this approach is mostly used in ESP classes. ESP classes means English for Specific Purpose classes. An example of this is English for Business Purpose classes. This approach has been proven very effective for ESP and EBP classes, because in this, the central aspect is the audience. It means when writing a piece, the audience are considered, their purpose, the purpose of writing is considered, the subject matter is considered, the channel of communication. It means if it is oral or written, this is considered. The relationship between the audience and the writer is considered. The pattern of organization is considered. And what linguistic features should be used, it has also been considered. What goals are intended to be achieved, these all are considered. Another thing is that this genre approach that we said, and this genre approach that we are talking about, this has 5 stages. First, setting the context, then modeling and deconstruction of the text, joint construction of a writing piece, independent construction, and comparing. In the first stage, setting the context, we're exploring the communicative purpose of the text. It means who we are writing, why we are writing, who are the audience, and what is the channel of communication. Modeling. We choose a certain type of writing genre. For example, in our specific case, we are selecting to talk about the complaint letter. We discuss the text genre, and we give a real life example of this complaint letter to the students, and ask the student to read it and break this real life complaint letter into different pieces, and find out what pieces are put together to make this complaint letter. The student then understand the function, the purpose, and the structure of the text. Also, the student find out what structure and vocabulary and grammar are used. After modeling, the student do a joint construction. This is a practical step where the student are reconstructing a text. In the modeling stage, the student took a real life example of a complaint letter, and they divide it and break it into different pieces. Now they are reconstructing that again. And in this stage, the teacher guides the student and also tell them or remind them of the modeling and joint construction stage. We have to also know that after joint construction, where the student is rearranging and reorganizing the letter so that he can produce his own version, and after this stage, the student do an independent construction. All these first first three steps were together with the classmates, but the fourth step, which is independent construction, this is a independent, or the student has to do it individually. The student writes, for example, a complaint letter, or the student writes a certain type of genre independently, and the last stage is that he compares this letter with his classmates and with other real life example of complaint letter which has been used in real life situation. Well, these are the type of letters which usually are used in business. Uh, there might be many other types, but I selected these time: inquiry letter, letter of complaint, letter of apologies, and letter of complaint. This is one of the example of letter of complaint. Uh, this is a letter of complaint which is taken from an email, from the email of from an email, and this is something which has been sent from a general manager to another person. uh, this is a complaint, something of complaint letter. We give this to our students and ask them to break it into different pieces. So they break this into different pieces and come up with this. At the first stage, they identified the first part of this letter as heading and date. In the second part, they identified it as inside address. When we give this to the student, they realize that there is salutation and greeting section. This part, which is very important, the student named this, giving detailed information of the reason for the complaint. It means in this part of this complaint letter, enough information has been given about the reason why this person is making a complaint. Another part was this section. This was formulating the complaint. At the first section, the person or the one who have sent this message has given detailed information of the reason for the complaint. And then the next section, or in the next paragraph, he is formulating the complaint, or he is actually writing his main complaint. This is the part where he requests for a problem solution. It means he is asking to solve this problem. And the last part is closing and signature session. This is what our students did. We at the first stage provided this letter to them and asked them to break this letter into different pieces. They did this one. They break this letter into different pieces, and they come up with these 7 sections: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections. And they said a complaint letter is consist of these 8 sections. Now after this, they outlined some of the issues. They mentioned that the grammars which were used are, we call it in English language, the linguistic features. They outlined that the linguistic features used in this in such a kind of complaint letters are negative communicative politeness. For example, please promptly. Modal verbs, for example, can and could, and these kind of verbs are used in such a kind of complaint letters. Conditional clauses are used in such complaint letters. Passive voice, perfect tenses. They also mention that expositive, persuasive, and commissive sentence are very usual and have been used in this particular complaint letter. The vocabulary which they identified are used in this letter are compound nouns, nouns, directives, directive verbs, request verbs, adverb of time. For example, dispatch, please, as soon as possible. They realized and they identified these linguistic features which has been used in this letter. The grammar, as I mentioned before, conditionals, passive, expositives, and these things were usually used in this letter. Now in this, when first we provided that model and asked them to deconstruct that together with their classmates, And after that, the third stage was to ask them to create their own writing and to create another piece of complaint, write a complaint letter, modeling considering the model, they have to create or produce their own complaint letter. This is the thing that they produced. They produced a complaint letter considering the model. Global Printing Services, Kabul 2nd District. They put a date, they put a salutation, the inside address, they put a salutation here, and also they provided some information. They put their first complaint here, and at the end they also ask for solution, and at the end there is closing. So the result that we took is that if we provide the students with a model, the result was that if we provide the students with a model or a piece of writing which has been used in real life situation, and then ask the student to find to deconstruct this model to different pieces and find out the main or the major part of that letter, and then find out the linguistic features which are usual in that particular genre of writing. This has been proven very effective. Now, which after applying this genre approach and authentic materials for the writing of our business student, the research that we did, the inquiry that we did, the result was that the students were very happy, and they were satisfied with this method because they were able to use their inside classroom knowledge for their working environment. Therefore, we were happy for that, and we still we are working to suggest this approach for writing to other English teachers and those teachers who are teaching writing for different purposes. Thank you for your attention.
So, some questions, Taos.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find to, and by the way, very interesting presentation. I especially liked breaking it down into the 8 components.
Yes.
It seemed that could be very helpful. It could be helpful for a student writing a letter or reading a letter to understand what the audience is asking from them.
Thank you.
What's the biggest challenge to the students in using these authentic models as they're learning to speak, special purpose English? Where did they get hung up?
Well, one of the challenge was that we couldn't access the materials which are produced by native speakers of English language. Therefore, we were using the materials which were created by second language speakers. That was one of the challenges because you know that the native speakers are producing much impeccable writings than the second language speakers. Therefore, our students were confused at the first stage because they didn't know whether because in most of the writings, the students are happy to follow the structure and the linguistic features which the native speaker use. So that was a challenge at the first stage, but later on the students were accustomed, and we were also familiar to different other sources where we could find the pieces of writing which were produced by native speakers.
Now, another challenge that I've witnessed in teaching technical communications to English speakers by an English speaker is that there are other professors who are not involved in communication don't always reinforce the skills that are required for them to write well. Do you get support from other faculty in this, or do they hear it one way in the classroom, but then when you're working with them, you're expecting, a different standard?
Well, the most important thing is that we are only receiving support from those faculties where we are teaching the English language. For example, in the business department, they're giving us support, but not other departments. Yeah.
We won't tell them you said that. That's okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, in addition, are there issues with vocabulary? Let's see. Are there issues with vocabulary and content that the students struggle with? Because so much is context, not just the words that are being used. A complaint letter is a great example of that, because there are certain things which you shared with us that you would use in a complaint letter, because you want to have a softer approach. But when you're learning a new language, it's a lot to ask if they're, if they have the right vocabulary and the right context and to pull it together. So how do you get them past that? I would be very frustrated.
Yeah, let me make clear one thing, that this approach, we are using this approach with those students who are at least an intermediate level of English language. That is why it works better. But with the beginner level, we cannot use it. We have to go their way if they're beginner students.
Okay. If anyone else has questions, just pop them into the comment box. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and it's so important that students be able to communicate effectively, especially students who are in business. So thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice comments. I was very happy to share my experience and knowledge with you. And that would be a great opportunity if we share more of our knowledge in the future with you. Thank you, sir.
All right. All right, everyone. One more presentation to go. I hope you enjoyed them so far, and I hope you enjoy your last one. And we're going to end the meeting now.
Thank you, sir. Bye.